Okay, I was hoping that the pastor would give a longer introduction, which would give me another minute to get these phylacteries on. How many people have never, ever seen phylacteries before? Don't be ashamed. I mean, a lot of Jews don't even know what it is, so. Okay. I will say one thing. If you come to Israel on El Al or any airline, when the sun comes up, and they're flying into the sunrise always, and there are always going to be these Orthodox Jewish men putting on phylacteries. And, or if you go to the Western Wall, how many people have been to Israel? Oh, that's a bunch of good people here. I don't want to start with a commercial. My son has a tour company to Israel for Christians and Messianics, and we'd be very happy to host you in Israel. So I'm going to share some things that, maybe I'll share some things involving tourism, but that'll probably be in the 4th hour. So. Anyway, these are the phylacteries, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell, prayer show of phylacteries, and then I'm going to show things that will probably shock you. The bottom line of the message tonight is the collapse of Saudi Arabia and the defeat of Islam. Islam is going to be defeated. And it's not going to be defeated because the Jews and the Christians are going to defeat them. It's going to be defeated because the harlot is going to dismount from the beast and kill the beast. Okay, so I'm going to start first with the Bible study, and then you'll be able to understand. Now, firstly, let me ask a question. People look at this. What does this remind you of? Can anyone shout out one word what this looks like?
Mecca.
Mecca! How many people know what the black stone is in Mecca? The Muslims go on pilgrimage around the black stone. There's a mosque in Mecca. This is on the cover of my 6th book. And I want you to know, I'm Jewish, but rabbis are not very happy with me. Because I say that this is a replica of the black stone. I say that Jethro was the high priest of Midian. What's the name of Midian today? No, Medina. Medina, Midian, it's the same thing. We're going to talk about this. And there was no city of Mecca. There was a black stone in the middle of nowhere. And we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to do a little background, teach a little bit of New Testament. May I?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You're going to be blessed by the Bible teaching. You might not agree at the end with some of my political things, but so this is the crown. And I was kind of hoping that Pastor would say, yes, you did the prayer show on phylacteries, because then I wouldn't waste an hour and I'd be talking about the news and things. But this is an important teaching for you to understand also why. And you all heard of Osama bin Laden. And of course, this week we were watching probably Fox News and the interview with the Navy SEAL who shot him. How many people saw the interview with the Navy SEAL who shot him? Okay, so here, let me get my glasses out. I can read without glasses, but I make a lot of mistakes. Okay. Point number 8 on the back of the book, and think about this for a moment. Why did Osama bin Laden say the following? Thus Israel, and behind it America, killed all the children of the world. And who is to stop Israel from the murder of our sons tomorrow in Tabuk or in Ja'uf? Tabuk and Ja'uf are northwest Saudi Arabia, or the surrounding areas of Palestine. Surrounding areas of Palestine are Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. And what will the rulers of Saudi Arabia do if Israel starts to expand its unfair, unjust, and false settlements, which the leaders do declare as such, beyond its currently known boundaries, and says, quote, our borders, Israel's borders, extend to Medina. Now, I heard this from Jim and Penny Caldwell. How many people know Jim and Penny Caldwell? Wow, good. I'm going to be with them in 2 weeks. And Jim and Penny Caldwell have been a very strong influence and inspiration in my life. And they gave me this quote. And I want you to know that I have a lot of different inputs in my life. I went to seminary to become a conservative rabbi at age 41. In seminary, they didn't like me very much. It's kind of like if a Texan goes to the Methodist seminary in Pennsylvania. So I'm kind of like a Jewish Texan. And so I was never accepted for the rabbinic track. I did an MA program, but I was not ordained as a rabbi. Maybe that was better because this way, instead of being a pulpit rabbi with 100 families, it's maybe better for me to be teaching millions of Christians as an unordained teacher. So I was in seminary at age 41. It went to 44. It was the happiest 3 years of my life. They were the most difficult years, but they were the happiest years because I was surrounded by God's Word the whole time. And one of the very first things we learned in seminary were 4 verses from the New Testament. Do you want to know what the first verse of the New Testament I learned? Matthew 23, verse 5. Jesus says, "For they make broad their phylacteries, and they enlarge the hems of their garments." How many people know this verse? Okay, now, the reason they taught this to us in seminary was to give us external proof outside of rabbinic Judaism that the phylacteries were indeed in use around 50, 70 AD. In other words, the book of Matthew, Gospel of Matthew, was written circa 50 AD. There is no evidence in any of the Judaic writings about the use of phylacteries. The only proof we have in writing is the New Testament. So in the Jewish Theological Seminary, the conservative movement, we studied Matthew 23, verse 5, to provide ourselves with proof that the phylacteries were in use 2,000 years ago. Also, we had archaeologists like Yigael Yadin who visited Masada. How many people have been to Masada? And in Masada, they found archaeological specimens of the phylacteries, which were perfectly preserved in the dryness of the desert in the Dead Sea area. The other 3 verses of the New Testament that we learned in Jewish seminary were Mark 12, 28 to 31. There are 4 verses. So it starts out with Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Jesus said it. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, with all thy strength. Jesus was basically repeating and reconfirming Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 and 5. And then he went on to say, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, which is Leviticus 19:18. And then Jesus says, there are no commandments greater than these 2. So whenever I see Christians, I say, hey, what are the 2 most important commandments in the New Testament for every Christian? Love the Lord thy God, love thy fellow as thyself. So this you find in Mark 12, 28 to 31. Okay, now, so that's the phylacteries. We have, this is all made of cowhide or goat hide, and we wrap them around the arm 7 times. And like I said before, this is on our forehead, between our eyes and our forehead, and on our left arm in front of our heart. Okay? So, I'm a troublemaker. And I asked the professor in seminary, tell me, when did we start putting on phylacteries? He said, oh, this goes back to Mount Sinai, to the 10 Commandments. And I got it. One of the reasons I'm not in seminary is because I said, no, it isn't. It's in Exodus 13. Exodus 13, we are still in our homes in Egypt. We have not yet crossed the Red Sea. We have not yet fled from Pharaoh, from slavery. So these phylacteries predate Judaism. Judaism only begins at Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments. So anything before the 10 Commandments, and another thing that made the rabbis very angry with me, still was today, is I said, we were pagans. The Israelite tribes in Egypt, Joseph and his brothers. I mean, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph had special revelations of God. But in Egypt, in slavery, we were pagans, just like every other Egyptian. What were the gods of the Jews and the Israelites? The male and female bull and cow. They're clean animals. We were shepherds. What did the Egyptian people pray to? The eagle, the snake, the beetle, the crocodile, and all these other things which are not considered clean by us. We didn't pray to those things. We prayed to the male and female bull and cow. And this is documented by Jim and Penny Caldwell. And it's on the rocks in Saudi Arabia, etched in. And I got the copies of the pictures from them. It's in my book. And so rabbis don't like it when I come and say, guess what, we were pagans in Egypt when we were slaves. Did you ever ask yourself the question, why was Aaron the high priest not executed for the sin of the golden calf? And the reason he wasn't executed was because Moses disappears, goes up to Mount Sinai. He did not say, etched in stone, I'm going for 40 days and 40 nights and I'm coming back. He went up, he never came back. And 40 days and 40 nights, the people of Israel were getting very restless. Where's our Moses? And I'm going to say something else also, which is why I'm wearing the prayer shawl. I'm not wearing the prayer shawl just to show off. There are very important things involving the prayer shawl and the phylacteries, which if I didn't do it ever in this church, it needs to be done. And you're going to see how all this connects with Saudi Arabia. Okay. We were pagans, and the religions, quote unquote, of that time, there was no Christianity, there was no Judaism, there was no Islam. What existed in those days was you would burn your first child on the altar of Molech, and in order to have ablutions of sin, you would have sex with temple prostitutes. How many people know about the prostitutes? All the ancient nations used sex as part of their liturgy, and you know the oracle at Delphi. She was a prostitute. Okay. I mean, today you call it a prostitute. In those days it was the oracle or whatever. But all these ancient nations, the Canaanites, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Babylonians, sex was at the heart of their religion, and so it was with the Israelites. So the Israelites, what had happened when Aaron built them the golden calf? Moses comes down from the mountain, and he sees them having sex. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the Cecil B. DeMille movie, but there was a real orgy going on. And then Moses smashes the tablets. The word in Hebrew is mitzachek. We see this, the word mitzachek, when Ishmael sodomizes Isaac. How many people know that Ishmael sodomized Isaac? It's in my black book. I give the whole explanation about what Ishmael did, why Sarah demanded that Abraham send him away. We see this with Rebekah and Isaac when they went to Gerar, and the king Avimelech saw them sporting. King James says sporting. Isaac said, that's my sister. And so Avimelech said, that's not your sister. Verily, that's your wife. Because he was a peeping Tom. He looked through the window, saw what they were doing. He said, brother and sister shouldn't do those things. And then you know, of course, the story about Joseph. He was sold into slavery in Potiphar's house. And you know, the Bible is a very X-rated book, I'll have you know. And Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. He leaves his cloak in her hands. And so she calls her husband and all the people in the household and says, why did you bring this Hebrew slave to mock us sexually? Meaning the same thing, to rape us, basically. Yeah. Okay, so there are a lot of things that usually the 5 deceptions of Islam. The point I'm saying is, why do Jewish men wear the prayer shawl? The answer is in Numbers 15, 37 to 41. Numbers 15, 37 to 41, and in a moment you're going to understand the miracles that Jesus performed with this. Okay? Numbers 15, 37 to 41, God says to the children of Israel, speaking to the children of Israel, tell them to put on fringes on their clothes. And the purpose of the fringes is to remind the Israelites not to go whoring after the other gods. Because all the other gods of our surrounding nations were prostitution gods. Are you with me? Where do you find this in the New Testament? Acts 15, Acts 21. There are 4 commandments for Christians. If you're not under the law, as the Jews are, what do you keep? You don't eat meat offered to idols. And I also talk about halal Islamic meat. You do not buy halal Islamic meat because when they slaughter the animals, they offer it in the name of Allah. And you've heard me before. Allah is Satan, Lucifer the devil. I have a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland, and I'm very proud of this. Don't eat meat offered to idols. Don't eat meat offered to Satan. Second thing says fornication. Fornication is not extramarital or premarital sex. Fornication is sex with temple prostitutes in the name of the pagan gods. Again, we're talking about idols and pagan gods. And then it says don't eat blood, don't eat strangle. That's the kosher laws. Okay. Now, let's first look at some of the things that Jesus did with this. Firstly, you know the story of the woman with the issue of blood. She was bleeding how many years? 12 years. That's called endometriosis. Horrible, horrible infirmity. And I don't know how much you know about the Jewish laws regarding women during their time of bleeding, but a Jewish woman is supposed to count 7 days after her period is over, and she goes and she baptizes. So that 7 days or whatever day she has her period, and then 7 days after, her husband cannot touch her. If her husband touches her, he gets the cooties. If he has sex with her during her bleeding, he's unclean 7 days. So this woman was bleeding for 12 years. Can you imagine 12 years her husband couldn't touch her? Probably divorced her. She couldn't touch her parents or her children. You can't sit on the same stool. You can't sleep in the same bed. Anything she touches, you touch it, you get the cooties. Cooties is a Jewish word. So this woman who was bleeding 12 years was just as bad as a leper. Can you imagine living 12 years without touching anyone? Horrible. Now, you see the front fringes? It's about a yard in front of me. You all see the front fringes, a yard in front of me? If you look at the back fringes, this goes back like 2-3 yards. Now, you have to remember, Israel's a windy place, and kind of like Amarillo. And Jesus is walking through one of the alleyways of the old city. And does Jesus lead from behind?
No.
Forgive me for this. He was leading his disciples, or they were alongside him. This woman comes up from where? From behind him. So you have to remember, it's windy. This is flapping in the wind. And this woman nicks the edge of the fringe 2-3 yards behind him. And Jesus says, who touched me? Because I feel virtue has gone out of me. Why? He got the cooties from her. She was bleeding, she touched it. Now, where do you find this in Leviticus? Leviticus 15:19. It's a whole chapter. It explains, even men, for example, if they, you know, the Torah is a very medical book. If a man has any fluid coming out of his body, he's unclean also for 1 day. But women bleeding is 7 days. Okay. So she touches him. Now, Jesus should have been really angry with her. What did he say to her? Thy faith hath made thee whole, go in peace. Okay, so because she touched the fringe of the prayer shawl, she was healed. This is a holy thing for every Jew. And it was holy for Jesus too. Now, you remember the story about the young girl who was given up for dead, and Jesus does to her what Elisha did to the young boy. Don't forget, Jesus was a rabbi. All rabbis were doctors. They were trained as medical men. The Torah teaches these things. And so Jesus, like Elisha, lies down and performs CPR. In other words, Elisha did it for the boy, Jesus did it for the girl, and he says to her, Talit takumi. This is talit. Takumi means get up. By the power in me of the talit, get up. She gets up. So understand, talit is the prayer shawl. Are you with me? So this we know Jesus did in the miracles. I'm trying to explain to you the miracles in the New Testament from a Judaic perspective so you understand the greatness of this. Makes it even more profound. Okay, so this I'm going to take off right now. Otherwise I'm going to heat up. This is like a blanket. The Mexicans got the poncho from the talit. You know? Now, this thing here, Jesus says they make brother phylacteries. What does that mean? It means this thing comes in 3 sizes. Size A, size B, and size C. This is the size B. This costs $400. Size A, which is the smallest size, is $200. And size C is $600. It's the broadest one. So what Jesus is saying? They made brother phylacteries to be seen of men. If you got 600 bucks, buy the 200, maybe the $400 one, but the rest of the money give to the poor to eat because the people were starving. But Jesus never said, don't put these on. Okay, now how do I know that Jesus put these on? I was on a flight from Tel Aviv to New York. I was studying at the seminary at the time. I was also studying classical Greek at Hebrew University. And I get on the plane Saturday night, and the president of my synagogue was on the plane. And we were both in synagogue in the morning, and I didn't know he was flying. He didn't know that I was flying. And when we saw each other, you know how it is on the plane. You start talking, and about 20 people all around you hear every word you're saying. So all of a sudden, a guy about that big gets up. He's a Greek Orthodox Christian priest. But he wasn't dressed as a Greek Orthodox priest, he was dressed civilian. He says, I've been listening to you for the last 15 minutes, and I want to talk to you right now. Grabs me, boom, sits me down. It was the nicest flight I ever had, because I was comparing Jewish liturgy and ritual with him, and he was comparing Greek liturgy and ritual with me, which made me very interested. I just enjoyed very much. So I showed the Greek Orthodox priest the phylacteries, and he looked at them and said, wow, this is wonderful. You know, we Greek Orthodox Christian priests also put on phylacteries. Not exactly like this, they look a little different. On the arm, it's a latchet type of phylactery. And I said, why do you put on phylacteries? That's a Jewish thing. Why do the Greek Christians put them on? He said, Jesus Christ put on phylacteries, and we emulate his life, we put on phylacteries. Wow. So what I'm sharing with you are things that, from my personal life experiences, which you don't even learn in seminary sometimes. I'm collecting pieces of a jigsaw puzzle to give you a clear picture. Okay, so you see this, and what I want to do now is go back to seminary and talk a little bit about these phylacteries. Talk about Moses. How many people know that Moses was a general in Pharaoh's army? I see you got, there are about 10 people here who have Josephus at home. Or you saw the successful Be the Mill 10 Commandments. Remember, he comes back from a successful campaign in Africa. This wasn't Hollywood, this is true. And the story is that you all know that Moses was given up for adoption. The casket was, that little basket there was put in the Nile River, and Pharaoh's daughter picks it up. And so he's raised by Pharaoh's daughter, who could not have children. And he gets the best education that any Egyptian could have in those times, in Pharaoh's house. And Egypt has a very long history in which Egypt was conquering and Egypt was being conquered. And so the story, according to Josephus, it's not in the Torah, but it is in Josephus, and I believe Josephus. The story is that there was an African army that came into Egypt and overran Egypt, and Pharaoh's army could not stop them. And none of Pharaoh's generals could defeat these Ethiopians, or some people say Cush is not Ethiopia, but Sudan, but somewhere on the Nile. And Moses says, I'll do it. So of course the Egyptian princes were very happy that Moses should go and do it, because Moses definitely would be killed by the Africans, and they'd get rid of him. They hated him because they knew he was a Hebrew slave, or descended from Hebrew slaves. And so the story, according to Josephus, which is in this book, he goes and he circumnavigates around the Ethiopian army or the African army, and he ambushes them, destroys them. And then he goes all the way back to their city at the upper reaches of the Nile. And lo and behold, the daughter of the king, the princess, sees him from the ramparts, falls in love with him, and sneaks out through the back door, goes to Moses and says, I offer you the city if you marry me. That way nobody gets killed. Evidently, that's the way things were done in those days. And so Moses says yes. And according to Josephus, Moses consummates the marriage with the African princess. Now I have another story which differs a little bit from the Jewish Midrash, but it's basically the same story. The Torah does not want to paint Moses as a great hero. All the glory goes to God. So the rabbis kind of diminish the effect of Moses as a great hero and war hero. So Moses comes back, and according to Josephus, it's then that he kills the taskmaster, and then he flees to Jethro. Okay, Now, how many people here know that Jethro is a cousin of Moses? I see 4 hands. Now, how do we know that Jethro was a cousin of Moses? Jethro was the high priest of? Midian. Who was Midian?
Son of Abraham.
Son of Abraham, just like Ishmael. You know, after the death of Sarah, Abraham remarries. He's 137 years old, and he has a whole bunch of kids with the concubines and with the Keturah, and Midian is one of the sons of Keturah. So remember, Ishmael is the son of Hagar, Isaac is the son of Rebekah, and Midian is the son of Keturah. But they're all sons of Abraham. So go down 3, 4, 5 generations, and do you think Moses knew who his cousin was across the pond, across the Red Sea? Sure he did. He knew exactly where he was going. And then he marries another woman, Zipporah. And I want you to know, I get into a lot of trouble with many rabbis because they follow things that other rabbis said 1,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago. And there are many rabbis who say that Keturah and Zipporah are the same. And I say that's nonsense. So the rabbis get angry and throw me out. I said to them, no. You see, what does it say about the woman, the Cushite woman? Cush is Africa. Zipporah was a cousin. She was the flesh and blood of Moses. Are you with me? Moses had two women, 2 wives, at least. You remember Miriam speaks badly about the Cushite woman? She gets leprosy.
Right.
So, you know, I speak a lot in black churches, so I say, you know, you don't mess with the black women, you know, because you're going to get leprosy. You know, everything's funny. Everything has to be funny. So Moses had 2 women. And then he goes, he's a shepherd for, he has his cooling off period, he's a shepherd for Jethro. I say in Arabia. Why do I say Arabia? Why do I say that Midian is Medina? First you look at the roots. In Hebrew, Arabic, Medina, Midian, it's the same roots. What's one of the names of Medina in Arabic? Yathrib. Yathrib is Jethro. The Muslims call Medina Jethro. And my wife and I are very romantic. And instead of watching blockbusters or Netflix, we watch the Arabian and Egyptian news. And the imams say, we know that Moses, Aaron, and Jethro were here at the Black Stone. You know, like, rabbis don't watch this stuff. My wife and I do. Because my wife is an intelligence gatherer, and she watches everything they say in Arabic. Now, of course, you all know that Moses is a Muslim. And Jethro is a Muslim. And Aaron is a Muslim. That's what the Muslims say. But so is Jesus. Jesus is a Muslim too. How many people know Jesus is a Muslim? Jesus is coming back a second time as an Arabic-speaking Muslim warrior to slit the throats of the Jews on Saturday and the Christians on Sunday. We've covered this in past meetings. So, he's about 80 years old. He sees the burning bush, and God tells him, go back to Pharaoh. And of course, Pharaoh thinks he's God, and confront him. And again, don't forget, we are slaves in the land of Egypt 430 years. There is no Judaism. We're shepherds, and our religion is praying to the cow and the bull. We pray to those animals because they are our animals, okay? What's the symbol of slavery? The pyramid, the triangle. And my contention, I'm the only person in the world who's saying this, by the way. It's in my book. Rabbis think this is crazy, but I think it makes perfect sense. And I think you will see very soon it will be discovered that what I'm saying is true. What is the symbol of freedom? The cube. Why do I say this? What does Moses say to Pharaoh? Moses says to Pharaoh 6 times, let my people go. 6 times. But the first time is different than the other 5 times. The other 5 times, let my people go so that they may serve the Lord in the desert. But the first time says, let my people go so that they may go around in circles in the desert. Now, going around in circles is my interpretation because it's in Hebrew. Okay, now the King James, which is what the Jews use, King James, good Jewish guy, is let my people go so that they may celebrate the Lord in the desert. And it's true, it is celebrate, but it is also go around the circles. So let's do a little Hebrew and Arabic language course now. What do you call a pilgrim who goes to Mecca? Starts with an H. Hajj. Hajj is a Muslim who goes around the Black Stone how many times? 7 times. And in Egyptian Arabic, it's pronounced a little differently. Instead of Hajj, the J becomes a G. In Egyptian Arabic, it's Hag. How many people here know in Hebrew? How do you say happy holiday in Hebrew? Chag Sameach. You know what I'm saying? It's the same word. Now, what does Chag mean in Hebrew? Also means to go around the circles. My contention is there was no Judaism. We were pagans, and there were 2 religions. There was the religion of Pharaoh, where he's God, and there was the religion of the black stone in the desert, and you go around in circles around this stone. And God says, Moses says, let my people go so that they may go around the Lord in the desert. This was the Lord. That's before God said, you're not turning to the right, you're going to turn to the left, and you're going to go up to Mount Sinai. How many people know Mount Sinai is in Arabia? How many people think Mount Sinai is in Egypt? See, Helena was wrong, the mother of Constantine. It's a nice place to visit, but it's not the Mount Sinai. Okay. If you're interested in more information, I have a DVD on the table, which I did not make. It was made by Jim and Penny Caldwell, about Mount Sinai, which is in where? In Arabia. Is the book of Galatians kosher? Galatians chapter 4, verse 25. Hagar and Mount Sinai, which are where? In Arabia. Okay. Okay, so, you know, when a plane is flying, circling the airfield, we say amatos. Matos is a plane. Chag. This plane is circling. Moses says to Pharaoh, let my people go, she'achogu li bamidbar, that they go around the circles in the desert. Go around the circles around this, the black stone. In Arabic, there is the term ala rasi wa la aini, which means on my forehead and between my eyes. It means you're going to do something with all your strength and all your intention. This is like a gyroscope. We wear this on our forehead and we wear this on our arm, and this is a gyroscope taking us out of the pyramid, taking us to the cube. We're talking with primitive people. We're talking with people who couldn't even understand that there's such a thing as a God that you can't see or touch. Okay. This is kind of a crazy teaching. You know, there's no other Jew in the world who's teaching this. And the only people who really want to listen to me are the Christians. And at the end of the message, you'll understand why all this fits. Okay. Now, one of the most boring parts of the Bible is the description of the tent of the meeting. Now, why is it especially boring? Because the tent of the meeting, it talks about the wooden beams, what length they are, the different utensils, the curtains in the tent, how everything was. It's just very technical stuff, doesn't really interest anyone. But there's something there that struck my attention. It says you have 4 sides of the tent. So one side faces north, one side faces east, one side faces Yemen. Where's Yemen? In Arabia, to the southern tip of Arabia, and the 4th side faces the sea. What sea? The Red Sea. Is the Torah a GPS? The Torah is a GPS. The tent of the meeting was in Arabia. Okay? Now, do we want to put the map of Arabia already on? Put the map of Arabia and I'll point to something to make my point. Is it going to be on this thing here? Oh, okay. Oh, you got these things here. Okay, do you have the map of, put the map of Arabia? Yeah? Does somebody want to say something? Yeah, no, that's the advertisement of the book. I'm talking about the map of Arabia. Do we have the map? Okay, now what I'm going to show you now is the real intention that I have for this meeting tonight. Okay, this is not, can we get it bigger? What I want basically is Turkey to the north, Yemen to the south, Iran to the east, and Egypt to the west. Is there any way you can focus in on that? I forgot to bring my laser pointer. Does anyone here have a laser pointer with them? I know that all the kids have laser pointers. I have one in the car, it doesn't matter. What? Okay, you know what, can I borrow your cane, sir? Yes. This will do just as well. No. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to go over to the other map, but look at this for a moment here. You see it says Sana'a? It says Yemen. Okay, now it doesn't say here, you know where Mecca is? Mecca's right here. So the tent of the meeting, my contention is that the tent of the meeting is here, and to our backs is the Red Sea. Did you see it over there, or should I go over here? Okay. Here you have Saudi Arabia. Mecca is right here, opposite the Egyptian and Sudanese border. Yemen is here. So when the Torah says to make the tent of the meeting with the Red Sea to the back and Yemen to the right, it means you're right here at Mecca. Okay, thank you. Now, one of the things, I'm going to give you the bottom line of my message tonight, to ruin everything, then we're going to build up to it. You know, like Hollywood, they show you the end of the movie and then they have flashbacks. See, Saudi Arabia is controlled by Sunnis. Yemen used to be controlled by Sunnis. And Yemen has been taken over by whom? The Houthis. You ever hear the Houthis? No. They're Shiites, Shiite tribe, backed by Iran. So they're down here now. And Mecca is here. It's a coastal highway. The Iranians can take Mecca in 24 hours. Isn't that wonderful? Don't you get this in your news? The Shiites take Mecca, the Pandora's box is open. All the Muslims are going to pour into Saudi Arabia to kill each other. Isn't God wonderful? Okay. So let's go back to the Bible a moment. Okay. Now, the reason I say that is because how many people know 2 Chronicles chapter 20? 2 Chronicles chapter 20, I was taught this by a Christian, by the way. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, 3 armies march on Jerusalem, besiege Jerusalem. The armies of Moab, Ammon, which is the capital of Jordan today, and Seir, which is Arabia. 3 armies come to destroy Jerusalem and kill all the Jews. This is 3,000 years ago. And the Israelites don't know what to do. They come to King Jehoshaphat. And Jehoshaphat says, go to the high priest, go to the temple, prostrate, pray to God, and God will give you the answer. The next morning, they open up the gates of the city, they go out, and the 3 armies self-destructed. The 3 armies all died of the plague and they killed each other. Kind of like HIV and Ebola and who knows what else, and then the Civil War. You know, God does these things. So that's 2 Chronicles chapter 20. I have to learn that from Christians. You have to understand, I'm 65, 66, I'm still learning every day from Christians who are teaching me my book. And then I go to the rabbis, they don't want to hear it. Very frustrating. Okay. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the end of the book of Numbers. And do you guys pronounce the name Phineas or Pinchas? Pinchas. I say half and half. I'll say Phineas Pinchas, okay? And you know that the Israelite prince is copulating with the Midianite princess, and there's a plague in which 24,000 Israelites died. And Phineas Pinchas takes his lance, and he rams it through them in the middle of the sexual act, and the plague stops. Again, remember, the religion of the Midianites was sex. And God told us just a few chapters before, put this on to remind you not to go whoring after the gods of the Midianites, and the gods of the Canaanites, and the gods of the Egyptians, because in the good old days, bad old days, religion was sex. And God said this is an abomination. Okay, this is a very simple message, and the people there were very simple. The problem today is that modern day people, especially rabbis, look back and think that they are like we are today. To understand things that happened in the Bible 3,000, 4,000 years ago, you have to think, what were the civilizations and the cultures of that time to understand the real truth of what happened. Okay, now here comes something interesting. The Midianite princess, her name is Cosbi. Cosbi bat Tsur. Bat is the daughter of Tsur. What is Tsur in Hebrew? Does anyone know? The rock. What's the rock? This is the rock. Her father was the chieftain of the black stone. This is according to my theory. Then a few chapters later, towards the end of the book of Numbers, 5 kings of Arabia come with their tribes. There's a big war with the Israelites, and they all get killed. And Balaam gets killed too. You all know that Balaam gets killed also. And who gets killed? Tsur, the father of this Midianite princess, prostitute who was killed. Okay. This leads me to the next question. Does anyone know where Jethro was buried? If you have Josephus, you can find it in Josephus. If you get my book, it's a little easier. Correct. Jethro is buried in Israel. Do you know where in Israel? Just to the west of Tiberias. He is known as the father of the Druze. How many people heard of the Druze in Israel? Druze are very special people. They're descended from Jethro, which makes them cousins. Of course, Ishmaelites, the Arabs, are also cousins. The Druze are descended from Jethro. I don't know if you remember, but Moses says to Jethro twice, come with us to the land that God has promised. First time, Jethro says, no, I have a day job. What's the day job? He's the high priest of the black stone. That thing goes back to time immemorial. The second time Moses invites him, he doesn't answer, but he goes. Why does he go? Because he's the father-in-law of Moses, this crazy leader with slaves that came out of Egypt and killed the kings of Arabia. So, Jethro had to get out of Dodge. Jethro, by association, was a traitor. He had to leave, and he had to go with the Israelites. I mean, these are all, when you read the Bible, when you read the Torah, you have to read between the lines. Okay. I'll give you one little more point, and then we'll fast forward to today. Okay? Now, you all remember Elijah. Elijah has a contest with 450 priests of Baal, or Baal, and he wins, they lose, they die. And, Jezebel, Jezebel says to Ahab, you tell that Elijah what he did to the 450 priests of Baal, I'm going to do to him. So Elijah has to get out of Dodge. He's up there in Haifa, Mount Carmel. He's got to get out of there. He basically runs, jogs all the way to Beersheba to get away from her. And then he goes into the desert. He's probably dehydrated, heat stroke, falls asleep, and the angel of the Lord appears before him. This is 1 Kings chapter 19. And the angel of the Lord says, here's food and water, eat and drink, you gotta go. So he eats and drinks, what does he do? He goes back to sleep. I'm telling you, dehydrated, he's tired. So the angel of the Lord gives him more food and more water, and says to Elijah, you have 40 days and 40 nights walking in the desert, let's go, until you reach Mount Horeb. What's Mount Horeb? Mount Horeb is Mount Sinai, or next to it. According to Jim and Penny Caldwell, the two mountains are right here, to the south of Eilat. But these are the Madian Mountains here. Okay? I'll point it out over here. According to Jim and Penny Caldwell, who climbed the mountain of Moses, the mountain of God, is right here. It's just like 200 miles south of Eilat. And 40 days, 40 nights, walking in the desert, you make it. I'm very appreciative, sir, that you came tonight. Okay, so that's the Bible lesson. Prayer shawl, phylacteries, Arabia. Okay. What I want to do now, let me get my watch out because otherwise I'll go till midnight. I mean, Pentecostal churches, it's okay. Okay, so 7:20. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at what is happening now. And I'm going to share some very crazy things tonight. Let's start with Economics 101. Firstly, how many people remember when I taught about the Dallas Council on World Affairs? 1, 2, 3, 4. I see like 11, 10, 11 hands. 12 hands. I think it's important that I share it again. I'll do it quickly, telegraphically. I started my work in November, December 1990, just before Desert Storm. Desert Storm took place. All the things I predicted in Texas in 1990 took place, and all of a sudden I'm a prophet. I wasn't a prophet, I was just an army spokesman, Israeli army spokesman. I knew exactly what was going to happen because I was briefed by my commanders in Israel. We knew what was going to happen to dislodge Saddam Hussein from Kuwait. I come back a second time to the States in April, and I get an urgent telephone call from a PR woman in Dallas. She says, get on the next plane, you're speaking tomorrow to the Council on Foreign Relations. How many people heard of the Council on Foreign Relations? Commonly known as the One World Government. How many people believe in the One World Government? How many people believe it exists? The Illuminati, the Masons, okay, Trilateral Commission. And, God has a tremendous sense of humor. I fly down with 24-hour notice. These people, Council on Foreign Relations, they don't set up their meetings from today to tomorrow. They set up their meetings a year or two in advance. And I was obviously a pinch hitter for a no-show. Who's the no-show? Boris Yeltsin. Boris Yeltsin was an alcoholic. He gave 2 talks. The third night he had a little bit to drink, and that was enough to put him on a plane back to the hospital in Russia. So third night was a washout. Fourth night they needed a speaker. I was the speaker. So God in heaven had to make Boris Yeltsin so drunk that the doors would open for Avi Lipkin to come. Secondly, I get there. General Latham, retired of the Council on Foreign Relations, says to me, so tell me, sir, what's it like to be a general in the Israeli army? And I said, general? He says, aren't you General A. Lipkin, Chief of Staff of the Israeli Army? I said, no, I'm Lieutenant A. Lipkin of the Army Spokesman's Office. See, they got the wrong guy. So God is hysterical. God really does something. And I did what I considered to be a very, very good presentation. They actually invited me back. And I explained to them, what I said to them in April of '91 applies today also. We're talking about 23 years ago. And I was explaining to them how UN resolutions 242 and 338 say that Israel must give up land for peace. You all have heard this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Now, the media in America today points out giving land means giving all the land. But that's not what the UN resolutions say. UN resolutions 242 and 338 say Israel will give land for peace, but Israel will negotiate with its neighbors for new borders which are secure, recognized, and defensible. If you want to go home, check it out. UN resolutions 242, 338. So, if UN resolutions 242, 338 say that Israel must negotiate for new borders, does that mean we go back to the old borders? No, but that's what the State Department says. That's what the presidents, the Democrat and Republican, are saying. Even George W. Bush was saying, Palestinian state in 2008.
Right.
Was there a Palestinian state in 2008?
No.
Will there ever be a Palestinian state?
No.
Never. We say, there's a saying in Arabic, when my eyes will see my ears. And I thought these people were Christians. They were dressed like Sunday best, tie and jacket and everything. And I said to them, and Jesus lived in Nazareth, and he walked down the east side of Nazareth to the Sea of Galilee. How many people know there's something called the Jesus Trail? You can walk exactly the path that Jesus took 2,000 years ago down to the Sea of Galilee, where he went down to Capernaum, to the fishers. It's about a 2-3 hour hike. And then Jesus walked down the Jordan River and he baptized in the Jordan with John the Baptist, who of course wasn't a Baptist. Oh, come on, you gotta like it. And then Jesus, after he baptized, he walked 5 hours up to Jerusalem where he officiated the temple. Jericho, on the Jordan River, was a city of high priests. They would always baptize in the morning, and then they'd walk up to the temple. Tough walk, 5 hour uphill. Okay. And I explained to the people of this forum that you can walk to Jerusalem in 3 hours, you can jog in 2 hours, especially if you're an Islamic commando, and you can drive in a tank or a half-track or a car in 20 minutes, and you can fly from Amman and bomb Jerusalem in 3 minutes. That's how small the country is. That was my message. I said Israel must not give up half of the Golan that we still have. Israel must not give up the Jordan River as its eastern border. And Israel mustn't give up Gaza. Didn't we give up Gaza? Didn't we fight 3 wars since we gave it back to them? Do you know what the definition of insanity is? When you keep making the same mistakes over again, thinking this time the result is going to be different. So we got some crazy people in Jerusalem. Trying to make peace with people who have absolutely no intention of making peace with us. Okay. Okay. And the good people in Washington, D.C. support these crazy people. It's also known as ISIS. Hamas, ISIS. Okay. Just don't lose your heads over it. That's all. So we had dinner, and then they said, okay, our turn to talk to you. They said, Avi, you're a good speaker for Israel because you're an American-born Jew. You don't speak with a funny Israeli accent. We understand every single time to say it to us. You know how Israelis talk funny? And then they said to me, here in Dallas, you know, we don't like funny accents. And we don't like Russian accents or Yeltsin or Arabic accents of the princes. We don't like Jewish accents. We don't like, you know, Queen's English from Oxford, you know, because they bring in people from the United Kingdom. And you speak like a Yankee from New York, but you speak clear English, so you're a good speaker for Israel. But you know your problem is, you don't know realities. Reality number 1, Israel is all alone. America is tired of paying for your wars. We're not going to pay for them anymore. We gave you an airlift in '73 during the Yom Kippur War. We're never going to give you an airlift again. Therefore, and we don't care about your resolutions 242 and 338. You're going to make peace with the Arabs because we told you so, and nobody's going to stand with you. Number 2, and this is the punchline to my entire message, what I'm going to say now. So, they said there's only one thing that made America great, and that's the barrel of oil. The steady price of oil, steady supply of oil, and we're not going to let the Jews get in the way of that. Is that clear? Wow. And I was in shock. I was shell-shocked. I didn't even answer them. There were 2 Christian couples there that night, my guests that night. And one of them got up shaking, and he looked at the people in the room and said, you call yourselves Christians? Americans? You say what made America great was the barrel of oil? You should be ashamed of yourselves. What made America great was not the barrel of oil. What made America great was Jesus Christ. Amen. I'm not expecting you to be Pentecostal. Okay. And you're not Presbyterians either. You know, frozen chosen. Okay. Hey, listen, I've been there. I learned a very important thing that night. That there are 2 Americas. There is America which is Christian, and there's the other America which is anti-Christian. 70% of America is Christian, but the people in Washington are not Christian. I'm sorry to say it. I don't know if you know this or not. 70% of America backs Israel, population-wise. 80% of your Congress backs Israel. Democrat, Republican, is you know, bipartisan. U.S. military sees Israel as an ally. But the White House and the State Department are in the hands of the Muslims. That's right. I want to go back a minute to World War II. 6 million Jews died. It is true that the Nazis killed them. But there were 2 other sides to the Holocaust. There were the Muslims and there were the Allies. The Muslims said to the Nazis, you kill the Jews, we're with you. The Muslims said to the British, Canadians, and Americans, you deny the Jews visas to escape the Nazis, we're with you. How many people remember the ship to St. Louis? There was a ship, a refugee ship from Nazi Germany, May 1939, carrying 900 Jews to Cuba. Breckinridge Long, Undersecretary of State for visas, under Hull and under Roosevelt, calls the Cuban government and says, do not allow the Jews to get off the ship. Send it back to Europe. Cancel the visas. The ship then comes back to the United States off the coast of Florida. 3 different places. The Coast Guard circles the ship to make sure nobody jumps ship and swims to shore. Then the ship continues to cruise northward past the Canadian maritime provinces, and I think it was hundreds of Baptist pastors in Canada asked, begged Mackenzie King, Prime Minister of Canada, to at least allow the children off the ship. Mercy for the children. And Mackenzie King said, one Jew is one Jew too many. The ship went back to Antwerp. World War II had broken out, but Belgium had not yet been conquered by the Nazis. 800 of the 900 Jews on that ship perished in the Holocaust. Even at the end of World War II, after the death of Roosevelt, when Truman came in, Truman recognized the state of Israel. But Truman could have sent one B-17 and bombed the one railroad track going to the gas chambers and saved 1 million, 2 million Jews. There was a very clear consensus of the Allies not to get the Arabs angry. And the Jews were going to be sacrificed for the oil. Okay. The reason I'm saying this is because if in the 66 years of my life, I kind of know what America's all about, and I know about the economy in America. I also know that there's something called osteoporosis of the American economy, in which a lot of capitalists pick up and leave this country and they put up factories. And used to be they put up factories in Mexico, then Mexico became expensive, then they went to Bangladesh or China. So osteoporosis means your industry leaves, but instead America began to be blessed by the dot-com revolution, and America is basically a country of inventions and services, and somehow the American economy continues to move ahead. So we had a Jewish Holocaust. How many people know there was a black Holocaust? I'm not talking about slavery in America. I'm talking about Africa. There was a black Holocaust. 2 million blacks died in Juba, in the south of Sudan. 500,000 black Muslims died in Darfur. Has nothing to do with Jews or Christians. Slavery was never abolished in Africa. There are a number of countries in equatorial Africa, like Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, and they had civil wars between the north and the south. North was Muslim, south was Christian. Gaddafi backed the Muslims, and they slaughtered in each country hundreds of thousands of people. And nobody says, Rwanda, I think, was more of a, between Hutus and Tutsis. It had nothing to do with Islam so much. But that's maybe the only war that had nothing to do with Islam. You can't say the Muslims are responsible for every war. Almost, but not every war. So there is a Holocaust generated by the Muslims against the blacks in Africa, but that's okay also. See, in other words, you can kill the Jews, you can kill the blacks. Now, how many people know there's a Holocaust of Christians in the Middle East? 15 million Christians in the Middle East are either going to convert to Islam, die, or be banished, leave. Above and beyond the fact that it's a human Holocaust, I don't know if you realize it's the end of Christianity in those countries. 2,000-year-old churches are being destroyed by ISIS. And nobody cares. You know why? Because as long as you get the oil, steady price and steady supply of oil, they can kill the Jews, they can kill the blacks, they can kill the Christians. So the point I'm sharing here is the only thing that matters is the price of oil and steady supply of oil. Now, Jesus teaches us that either you serve the Lord or you serve mammon. Mammon in Hebrew is money, mammon. So if you're serving mammon, what are you? You're the harlot. Harlot, what's a harlot? Harlot is a man, a woman, or a system paid for services rendered that are not of the Lord. In my interpretation of Revelation, again, you'll forgive a Jew for trying to understand Revelation, but the New Testament's a Jewish book. I have nothing with that. Written by Jews, for Jews. And my contention is that this one world government, the people for whom I spoke in April of '91 in Dallas, these people worship mammon. They worship money. They don't worship the Lord. So Jews are expendable, blacks are expendable, Christians are expendable, and very soon Christians in America are expendable. How many people know if you're a Christian in America, you're a terrorist? According to Homeland Security. Okay? How many people know that if you are a Bible believer, you're mentally unstable? According to Homeland Security. I'm not making these things up. And you will never hear anything from the White House about Islamic terrorism. You're never going to put the two things together. America has a problem. But I think, praise God, and I hope I don't offend any Democrats here, but I've been on a high since the elections 2 weeks ago. Because this is the beginning of a Christian revival in America, which America must have. Amen. And for Israel to survive, America must be a Christian nation. Yes. I don't want to think of the other America, because the other America killed 6 million Jews in World War II. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a socialist Democrat. Yes. If America had had a conservative and a Christian as president in World War II, we could have saved at least 1 or 2 million more Jews. That's right. Okay. Now I'm going to start doing economics 101, the way I understand it. So you have osteoporosis, a lot of your industries leave, and what happens is you are more and more and more dependent on steady flow of oil from the Middle East. Now, praise God, you know, America now with fracking is self-sufficient. I think when this Keystone pipeline gets approved after the new Congress comes in, it'll make things even better. But America needs 2 things, now 3 things. One thing is steady oil flow. Secondly, when you pay the Muslims for the oil, they don't know what to do with the money. There's nothing they can do with paper, greenbacks. So what they do is they reinvest it back into the United States. So you need to get their oil, and then you need that money to come back in the form of investment. So they buy out your banks, they buy out your corporations, they buy out your media, they buy out your presidents, they buy out your politicians. And they even buy out some churches and synagogues too. It's called Chrislam. And universities. Okay, so basically, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. When I speak to tea parties, I speak a lot to tea parties. I always start with the question, how many people here think the dollar is going to collapse? Okay, so I see your hands are going up. How many people think the U.S. economy is going to collapse? Okay, how many people think immigration is bad? Okay, so now I'm going to refute all these things. And let me explain that. I would say this to the Tea Party. They love it. They want to kill me, but they love it. My wife Rachel, I haven't picked on her yet. This is the first time I'm going to pick on her. We're going to pick on her a lot tonight. Rachel is a Jewish woman, like I'm Jewish. But I was born and raised, praise God, in a Christian America. I think like a Christian. And my wife was born and raised in a Muslim country. She's Jewish, but she thinks like a Muslim. Rachel is an intelligence gatherer for the Israeli government. She's been working, monitoring their broadcast for the last 30 years. So 30 years ago, when she first started working, she picked up a broadcast she didn't understand. The broadcast said, Saudi Arabia, they were saying, even if it takes us 150 years, we're going to make America a Muslim country. And my wife was saying, that's crazy. How can you make the greatest Christian country on earth, a great Christian Satan, how can you make a great Christian country like America Muslim? Now she listens to them, and they said, we thought it was going to take 150 years. We were wrong. It's only going to take us 30 years. America is going to be a Muslim country. And Obama said it. How many people heard Obama say America's the greatest Muslim country on earth? He's a prophet. That's where he's going. How many people saw, this is Southern Baptist, right? Pastor Carl Gallups made a YouTube about me and my wife, and it's called Saudi Plant, P-L-A-N-T. How many people saw it? Almost 5 million hits. I recommend you go home tonight and you put it on.
Saudi Plant?
P-L-A-N-T. Like a plant. Obama's a plant, Saudi plant. Of course you said it. Old women know. Men don't get it, women get it. Okay. Now, and his job is to make America Muslim. Okay? Yep. Okay, now I'm going to explain to you how you're going to make America Muslim. Okay, now firstly, there's a given here, and that is that the Saudis own you. Okay? Now, we're in the great state of Texas. I mean, I live in Israel, but my base in America is now Carrollton, Texas. And I know almost every main highway in Texas. And I take very often Highway 75 from Dallas northeast across the Red River into southeast Oklahoma, across the Red River. You know, you cross over there and you go for like 20, 25 minutes, you don't see one human being walking on that road there. There are no houses. Beautiful land. You got lakes, forests, sweet water. You ever hear of the Ozarks? Yeah. You ever hear of the Kayamishi Mountains? fantastic areas, but nobody there really. Oklahoma's empty, Texas is empty, Missouri's empty, Louisiana, Arkansas, they're all empty. You could easily fit 100 million Muslims there. I want you to get into your minds 100 million Muslims, because that's the plan. How many Muslims are there in America already? 30 million. How many Jews are there? 6 million. This is not a Judeo-Christian country anymore. This is, Obama said it. He said it in his inaugural address in 2009. America today is a Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu country. The Jews have been outnumbered by the Muslims. So let's say, for argument's sake, that 10 million Muslims come live in America. Do you have 10 million homes on the market just sitting around? No, you got to build them. If 50 million come, you have to build 50 million homes. 100 million, 100 million homes. Now, do you know what happens when you build 50 million homes or 100 million homes? You have an unprecedented building boom in the country. Wall Street, when Obama came into the presidency, Wall Street was 6,000. Within 2-3 months, it was 12,000. Wall Street now is almost 18,000. Wall Street is going to go up in the next 2 years to 25,000. The American economy is improving. Not the way many of you would want it to improve, but the idea is the Saudis are committed to bringing all this money into America to play in order to build homes for these Muslims.
And they are.
And they're coming in. I could talk an hour, 2 hours, just how they're coming in, because I'm like a private investigator. So, women were born private investigators.
Is it true that he was bringing them in by the airplane?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You know what? Let me tell you my personal experience. The question is it true that these people are being brought in by plane? I was at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I've been on the road 25 years preaching in churches. And I'm returning the keys to my rent-a-car on the second floor of the rent-a-car thing there in Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And the guy who received the car was a young Indonesian gentleman, very handsome. Very handsome, looks kind of like Tiger Woods, you know. He's Indonesian too, by the way. And very nice. And I'm in a rush to catch my plane there at DFW. And all of a sudden, this Indonesian guy yells out, you know, America's the greatest country on earth. And I stopped, and I turned around and I said, yes, I know. America is the greatest country on earth. Why do you think America is the greatest country on earth? He said to me, well, you see, I used to be a delivery boy in Indonesia, you know, for FedEx. And one day I was in the American Embassy delivering boxes and packages, and an American Embassy official pointed his finger at me and says, hey, you want to go to America? There's a plane leaving tomorrow. Bring your parents, your brothers, your sisters, and bring all your friends. Let's fill up the plane. It's paid for already. We don't have passports. You don't need passports. No passport, no visa. We will process you when you get to America. Now you tell me, isn't America the greatest country on earth? Now there is an email circulating about a charter jet captain who quit because he knew he was flying in illegals. Charter jets flying in illegal Muslim immigrants into this country, they don't go to the terminal, they go to the end of the runway, and then 2 buses go out there, pick them up, and each person gets $3,000 and they're sent off to the north. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Maine, Michigan. I got 3 girlfriends, they're 75 years old. That's supposed to be funny. And they work for the trucking companies in Joplin, Missouri. You know, mile marker number 4, you have these truck stops there. There's every day 2 buses with Muslims coming in from Mexico, crossing Texas, and they stop there for their break in Joplin. Then they go to the northern states. This country is being infiltrated, inundated, invaded by millions and millions of Muslims. Because, you see, if what made America great was the barrel of oil, you're going to do what the barrel of oil tells you to do.
Yep.
And I have many more testimonies of infiltration of Muslims into the U.S. from Canada, from Mexico, or by air. And this thing has been going on for the last 40, 50 years. And nobody is accountable in Washington. The floodgates are completely open. And nobody knows, nobody cares, except maybe me. And churches like this, they'd invite me to come to speak. Okay. I'll say another thing also. Somebody, who said universities before? You said universities. So give me just, I don't want to waste so much time because the subject matter I want to cover tonight is not universities and Islamic infiltration. What I wanted to talk about is Saudi Arabia and how they're going to take over the country, and then Saudi Arabia collapses. Because ISIS, yes and no. I mean, you know, God has a plan. And God is not asking you or me. God does, I'm trying to figure out what is God trying to do. What is he trying to tell us? You take a university like Duke University, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And they get a letter from, it's a good university, not Ivy League, but a good university. And they get a letter from some oil prince in Indonesia. And he says, I'm coming to present you with a check of $25 million. Is the university going to say yes or no? You all come down. So he arrives there in Chapel Hill and makes his dedication speech. He says, here's a check for $25 million. We appreciate this university, no strings attached. Enjoy it, you deserve it. And but we want to tell you something else also. We think that it would behoove this university to improve itself a little bit, and we'll help you. You need to have an Arabic language chair, an Islamic studies chair, and we'll give you another $25 million. What's the university going to say? Bring it on! So now the kitty's up to $50 million. And we know that you Americans don't know anything about Islam. We'll give you professors. What are Muslim professors? Missionaries. And we know that you need tutors to help your kids learn Arabic. So we will send you 500 young male students every year. Tell me, Pastor, I never spoke about this here?
No.
I did. How many people remember that I talked about it? Oh, okay. So maybe I'll make it short. Anyway, to make a long story short, 500 young male students a year. After 4 years, you have 500 freshmen, 500 sophomores, 500 juniors, 500 seniors. 2,000 young, hot-blooded male students, not girls, because they guard their Muslim girls, but Muslim men can marry American women.
That's right.
And if they marry American women, they have children. What is the religion of the children? Muslim. So American Christian, Jewish, or atheist women become baby factories for the Muslims. Then, after 2 years of marriage, they get passports. When the Muslim students get passports, they can bring in all their families to the Middle East. In other words, the plan becomes geometric. It's not arithmetic increase anymore. Multiply Duke University by 1,000 universities. Of course, they have the money for that. It's your money. You have a debt $17 trillion. Is anyone concerned? I'm not concerned. Saudis have that money. They're going to give you the money. Of course, you all have to become Muslims. You have to sell your soul to the devil, Allah, and then you'll get the money. Okay, so I'm just saying, you know, this is where it's going. Okay, so let's go back now. So the US dollar will not collapse because you are now a colony of the Saudi Arabians. They have a vested, by the communist Chinese, they also have a vested interest in America not going down. The Russians might want to start World War III, Chinese don't. Chinese have a good thing going for them. Okay. What I want to do now, I think I've made it clear that ISIS can virtually do anything it wants. Killing Jews, killing Christians, killing blacks, killing Kurds, killing Druze, killing Zaidis, or whatever they're called, Yazidis, and then they kill each other also. Okay, that's okay, as long as the oil flows. Now, where is the problem? Now we're going to get into the subject of tonight. You know, the rabbi, before he speaks, he says, before I speak, I want to say a few words. So now I start my message. Saudi Arabia, under King Abdullah, over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 decades, is a feudal place. ISIS chops off arms and limbs and beheads people. That's nothing new because the Saudis do it all the time. Iran does it all the time. Okay. Now, the two great enemies are the Iranians and the Saudis. They hate each other, and it's a fight to the finish. Now, you know, it used to be that the Catholics and the Protestants hated each other. It was called the Wars of Reformation. 300 years, horrible wars, but praise God, it's over. Okay? Can I tell one joke? So, Father O'Malley is bashing the Protestants in his Catholic pulpit in Belfast in Northern Ireland. So he gets a call from the Archbishop, and the Archbishop says with his Irish accent, he says, Father O'Malley, I've been receiving reports you're bashing the Protestants. We're now working for peace in Northern Ireland. Is that clear from now? We preach the gospel at the High Mass. So Father O'Malley gets up at the High Mass with his Irish accent and says, and Jesus was having the Last Supper. And he said, one of you will betray me. So Matthew gets up as an Irish brother. No, Mark gets up as an Irish brother. All the disciples. The last one is Judas. And Judas gets up with his British accent and says, I say, old chap, is it I? And, you know, I have to tell you, I'm a Jew, so I love Catholics, I love Protestants, I love Jesus taught me to love every human being. And if a human being is in my enemy, I still love him. Isn't that what Jesus taught?
Yes.
Okay, but it's not like that in Islam. The Shiites and the Sunnis have been killing each other for 1,400 years. I have a 90-minute teaching on this on the table. Shiites and the Sunnis. It explains the civil war in Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. Now, the king of Saudi Arabia is a heretic, an infidel, a traitor, and a collaborator in the eyes of Iran, but also in the eyes of ISIS. ISIS are the child prodigies of Saudi Arabia. In other words, Saudi Arabia, if you are a Muslim child, a boy, you graduate high school, they give you a stipend, they give you money, and they send you off to fight jihad. You graduate, go off and fight jihad, hoping you die and you don't come back. They're exporting these terrorists, you know, so that they die, let the Westerners kill them, or let them kill each other. And after 5, 10, 15 years, some of these people come home. They're veterans of the jihad, of the holy war. And they want to get married, you know, they've got all the excitement out of their blood, and they just want to settle down. They come to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a country with 40% unemployment. Do you know what 40% unemployment is? And all the wealth of that very wealthy kingdom is concentrated in the hands of 6,000 princes. The rest of the country is a dump. I think one of the highest suicide rates in the world is in Saudi Arabia. And I don't have to tell you about women. You know, women cannot do anything, basically. They can't leave the country without their husband's signature. They can't drive. Now they're beginning to talk about women driving during the day only, you know. Insurance rates are low. But, Geico. Anyway, sorry. Now, why is the king of Saudi Arabia an infidel, a heretic, and a traitor? And the answer is this. Remember Jesus talks about the Pharisees, that they're hypocrites?
Right.
Well, Saudi leadership is hypocrites. Why? They have all this money, but they have no life, no sin life in Saudi Arabia. If they want sex, if they want prostitution, if they want gambling, if they want drinking, if they want drugs, they have to get in their private jets, which they do. And then they fly to Europe, or they fly to Egypt or some other place. They have a good time, or what they think is a good time. Then they turn around, they come back. Once they're over Saudi airspace, they put on their white robes, and their keffiyeh and everything, and then they're holy rollers again, okay? The Shiites see through this. The Shiites are poor, pure, and Puritan, and they don't understand this hypocrisy of the Saudis. Nothing. Saudi Arabia is a country of 19 million people. But in addition to the 19 million people, there are 2 million infidels and pagans. 1 million Hindus, 1 million Catholics from Philippines. These people run the country. They service the families, service the home. Saudis don't work. So the Shiites say, and ISIS says, don't forget, Shiites are Iranians, ISIS are children of Saudi Arabia. Get rid of these slaves, or we will behead all 2 million of them. And we will behead the king of Saudi Arabia and his family. And the third problem, this is a war between Islam and Christianity. Christians know it. You know the back of the book. You know that God defeats Satan, sends him to the pits of hell for 1,000 years.
Right.
Okay. Well, the Saudis see it a slightly different way. But the king of Saudi Arabia is perpetuating the Christian hegemony over the world by selling you oil. If they stop selling you oil, what happens is the market goes up to $300–400 a barrel. You cannot produce plastic without petroleum, and the world economy collapses. So ISIS says, and Iran says, deny the Western economy the oil, Islam wins. Now, you all heard of Pastor David Wilkerson. the ghetto is going up in fire.
Right.
If oil goes up to $300-400 a barrel, the cities will go up in flames. It's like Ferguson, you know. You don't need much for riots in this country.
No.
Billions of people will die of starvation, sickness, and chaos. Okay. Now, we go back to my original testimony about the Dallas Council on World Affairs. What made America great? The barrel of oil. Mammon. We're not going to let the Jews get in the way. We're not going to let the blacks get in the way. We're not going to let the Christians get in the way. We're not going to let ISIS get in the way. ISIS is saying now every day, we are going to kill the king of Saudi Arabia, we're going to wipe out the family, and then they don't say it, but we know they're going to blow up their oil wells. Because they don't need the oil. Who needs the oil? The West needs the oil. And the way for Islam to win is to destroy the Western economy. So the harlot who said we won't let Israel get in the way of our oil supplies is going to say we won't let ISIS get in the way of our oil supplies. Do you understand what I'm saying? The harlot is going to dismount the beast, the dragon, and slay it. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So now let's look again at the map. I need your cane again. Okay. Now, this is a very good map. I'll start over here, then I'll go back over here. What? Yes. You read my mind. Thank you. Now, Islam is 85% Sunnis. If you want to know who the Sunnis are, the Shiites are, there's a DVD on the table. We don't have time for it now. Basically, the Sunnis are the descendants of the first three caliphs, and the Shiites are the descendants of the fourth caliph, Ali, who was also son-in-law and cousin of Muhammad. Okay. And they've been killing each other, and it's never going to end. Now, the Sunnis are 85%, the Shiites are 15%, but the Shiites are all concentrated here. And down to here, and now down to here. This week, they conquered Yemen. It's not in your news. The Houthis conquered Yemen. They're backed by Iran. Thank you very much. These areas along the coast are more or less 50-50 Shiite Sunni. What do you have there? The oil. And what has happened is Yemen was always controlled by a dictator by the name of Saleh. Saleh fell from power when Gaddafi and Mubarak fell in 2011. So now they have these generals and these people who really don't know how to rule. And the Iranians who are here are sending their ships over here and supplying the Houthis with everything they need, including advisors, Iranian Revolutionary Guards, who are like Gestapo. You know, they're like the top soldiers of the Iranians. So here you have Mecca. There's a coastal road that goes down here. It's only about 300-400 miles. And this is now controlled by Iran. Iran controls this. Oman and the UAE and all these others are negotiating with Iran because America is radiating weakness.
Right.
These countries cannot rely on the US anymore. So they're trying to surrender and get the best deal they can with the Iranians. Because America is retreating. Okay, so now Saudi Arabia is surrounded here, 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 and here by Shiites. And ISIS is up here. And my prediction is ISIS is going to come down into Saudi Arabia, quote unquote, to help the Saudis to defeat the Iranians and the Shiites who are here and here. And then when ISIS does that, they're going to kill the king of Saudi Arabia and his family. What percentage of, did you all see it from there? Okay, what is the percentage of the Saudis that support ISIS? Does anyone know? 92%. ISIS is the prodigal son of Saudi Arabian educational system. Jordan supports ISIS. King Abdullah of Jordan, King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia will be history very soon. And what I predict is going to happen is that ISIS will be pulled down from the north to help defend Mecca from the Shiites, and also Egypt, which is here to the left, right across the pond. Egypt is going to be called upon to send troops into Saudi Arabia to help the Saudis. And of course, Egypt is bankrupt, so the Saudis are going to help Egypt financially. And you know what else could happen? Saudis will say to Israel, come in. When Israel comes in, that's the end of Saudi Arabia. Because everyone's going to say that Saudi Arabia became really, really heretical, that they work with the Jews. There is like a secret alliance between Saudi Arabia and Israel regarding Iran. I also predict something's going to happen with Iran very soon, probably led by Israel. I want to share, you want to say something?
There's a shelf down below, so it's
Yeah, okay, well, if I put it down here, I'll forget it. Okay. I want to share a few things that my wife picked up in the Arabic media regarding American presidents and regarding Obama. Firstly, regarding George W. Bush, the Saudis were saying Bush is either our ally or he's not our ally. If George W. Bush is our ally, he'll fight our battles for us. We will pay him, we will pay the American economy, we will support Wall Street, we'll give them oil, but American soldiers must fight for us. Saudis don't know how to fight. Another broadcast my wife picked up, and they were saying, we are very happy that American boys and girls die fighting our battles for us. In other words, they bite the hand that feeds them. They rejoice for every American who dies in uniform. And you know, I've seen girls without any legs before in the military, in Oklahoma City and other places. So the Saudis also said, if George W. Bush does not do what we tell him to, we're going to pull our money out of Wall Street and deny America the oil. In other words, the oil and the cash is a whip. It's a threat hanging over the U.S. by the Saudis. As long as you're in bed with the Saudis, Wall Street will do well. Okay. So my wife picks up broadcasts, and you'll forgive me. If you are upset by what I say, I'm not angry with you. You're not married to my wife. I'm married to a woman who's a live wire. She picks up, she's like a lightning rod. She picks up information every day in Arabic. 2006, the Saudis are saying, we will have a Muslim president in the White House in 2008. And my wife doesn't know what they're talking about. It was in 2006. We hadn't heard about Obama. We didn't know who he was. And we still don't know who he is. What's his name? Is it Mubarak Hussein Obama, or is his real name Barry Soetoro? I mean, he came into the U.S. with a Fulbright scholarship as a foreign student under the name of Barry Soetoro, Indonesian. He's a Muslim. Well, of course, I'm getting to that. 2010, my wife picks up a broadcast, and again, I recommend when you go home, look up Saudi Plant, P-L-A-N-T. This was made by a Southern Baptist pastor in Milton, Florida, Carl Gallups. And he goes under the name P.P. Simmons, and what he did about me and my wife was 100% correct. Rachel picks up a broadcast. I did this interview with Gary Stearman. How many people heard of Gary Stearman? Prophecy in the News. I did this with him 3 years ago. And my wife was watching Egyptian TV, Nile TV, January 19, 2010, and the former Egyptian Foreign Minister Abu Ghraib is debating with Muslim Brotherhood representatives, and they're attacking him, they're attacking Mubarak. Mubarak is still in power, and when they finished, Abu Ghraib says, are you guys finished? Now it's my turn. I want to calm you guys down. You're telling us to start a war with Israel, break the peace agreement? Well, let me tell you, we in the Egyptian government know what we're doing, and when the time comes, we'll do it. And in fact, I want to calm you guys down even more and to tell you that when President Obama was here in Cairo in 2009, he swore to me that he was a Muslim. That his father from Kenya, forget about the birth certificate, his father is a Muslim. What does it mean if your father's a Muslim? You're a Muslim. His father from Kenya was a Muslim. His stepfather from Indonesia, Soetoro, a Muslim of kind, Sunni Muslim. He was raised in a mosque and in a madrasa till age 11. How many people remember the Catholic Francis Xavier? Francis Xavier was the one who said, give me a child until 10 and I'll make him a man. This is a very famous Catholic saying. He was made a man. an Islamic man by age 11. It's in his book.
That's right.
And he said to the Egyptian foreign minister, I've got Obamacare problems and economic problems to deal with, but I swear when I overcome these problems, I swear I'll show the Muslim world what I'm going to do to destroy Israel. Obama is sworn to the destruction of Israel. My wife then picks up other broadcasts where the Saudis are saying Obama has 3 tasks. First, to destroy the Iranian leadership, the Shiite leadership of Iran, because the Shiite leadership of Iran is a big threat to Saudi, which is Sunni. Obama is a Sunni. Secondly, destroy Israel. Thirdly, destroy Christian America.
That's right.
Make America a Muslim country. Now, why does Obama not want to go to war with Iran? Because he wants Israel to go to war with Iran. Israel has the expertise to do it, and then Israel and Iran will duke it out. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The Shiite regime is overthrown by an Iranian student revolution, and the Israelis are destroyed by missiles. Tens of thousands of missiles. The only thing left for Obama to do is make America Muslim. How do you make America Muslim? You bring about a collapse of all the Islamic regimes in the Middle East. It's called the Arab Spring. How many people remember the Arab Spring? When you have an Arab Spring Muslim Brotherhood takeover, the whole country collapses. They kill the Christians, they destroy the Christians, they destroy their economy. When they destroy their economy, everyone's starving. When people are starving, what do? They leave. Where do they go? America. Okay? You understand why America's the greatest country on earth? Okay. Now, I want to go back for a moment. We're moving along. We're getting there. I don't want to say we're finished, but we're getting there. Okay? Just lost my train of thought, you know. So we're getting there. Change subjects.
You need to see.
No, I won't see you guys if I sit. By the way, my brains are better when I'm standing. So. Okay, yes. Remember what I said at the very beginning? TSA says that if you're a Bible believer, you're mentally unstable. Okay? Now let me explain to you how I am mentally unstable. Okay? Isaiah 19, verses 1 and 2. Isaiah 19, verses 1 and 2. If I had come here exactly 4 years ago and quoted this, you'd think I was mentally unstable. 4 years ago, November 2010, Mubarak was still president of Egypt, riding firmly in the saddle. Gaddafi was riding firmly in the saddle in Libya. Ben Ali in Tunisia, Saleh in Yemen, and of course there was no civil war in Syria yet. What does it say in Isaiah 19, 1 and 2? It says, Egyptian will fight Egyptian, brother will fight brother, neighbor will fight neighbor, city will fight city. Was that happening 4 years ago? No. Avi Lipkin is mentally unstable. But after February 11, 2011, the Arab Spring begins. How many people know why the Arab Spring began? Does anyone know? How many people heard about the food vendor? 2 hands, 3 hands, 4 hands. A Tunisian food vendor is pushing his cart and he gets arrested because he won't pay a bribe. Where's your license? I don't have a license. Okay, you're under arrest unless you pay a bribe. They confiscate his fruit, they confiscate his cart, they confiscate the scales on which he weighs the fruit. And then a Muslim woman police officer in Tunisia slaps him in the face, which is the ultimate insult to a Muslim man. They have to let him go, eventually. They release him from jail. He goes to the gas station, gets a quart of gasoline, pours it all over himself, and he self-immolates. And all the Tunisians in that little village have their cell phones, and they're taking movies of this guy going up in flames. In minutes, all of Tunisia's up in flames. The next day, Libya is up in flames. Gaddafi gets killed. The next day, Egypt is up in flames. Yemen is up in flames. Syria is up in... God reshuffles the deck. You have to remember, Hillary was putting all this pressure on Israel, and then all of a sudden, nobody could touch Israel because the whole Arab Spring was upside down. Now they're putting pressure on Israel again. ISIS pops up out of nowhere. God reshuffles the deck. Okay. And they're beheading Christians. They're destroying the branch on which they're sitting, the Muslims. You know, I want to share something a little crazy. Nothing's been crazy, everything's been boring until now. The Iranians, you know, they have missiles. Okay, you'll forgive me, I have to go over here, I think more people are here. Here's Iran. Okay? Israel can be hit by missiles from Iran. Okay? Does anyone know what I'm pointing to here? That's the Aswan Dam. Perhaps the Aswan Dam is maybe you don't. The Aswan Dam is here, and this is Lake Nasser. And, you know, Egypt was going to send troops into Syria to fight Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad is Shiite, Egypt is Sunni. Again, you know, Turkey also. You know what the Iranians said? If you attack Bashar al-Assad, we're going to nuke the Aswan Dam. What happens if you nuke the Aswan Dam? Lake Nasser, with radioactive fallout, washes through Cairo, washes through Alexandria. No more Egypt. I'm not talking about Israel. I'm talking about Iran doing it. Okay. Avi Lipkin is mentally unstable. Let's look at Ezekiel 29. It says, Egypt will be a desolation for 40 years. It doesn't say the Egyptians are all going to be killed. It says the Egyptians will be scattered to the four corners of the earth. Now, let me explain this. What does it say in Ezekiel 29? It says from Migdol, which is on the Mediterranean Sea, all the way to Aswan. In other words, the dam is in Aswan. You blow up the dam, Lake Nasser floods the Nile Valley. The people in Cairo and Alexandria have about an hour to flee from the floodwaters up to the higher ground. It's about, 20-minute walk. Like a tsunami. And that's all radioactive. Then you got 90 million Egyptians standing on the high ground, starving and thirsting, can't go back to their homes. The world cannot feed 90 million people every day in the Egyptian high desert. So you've got to basically airlift these Egyptians to America, where you can feed them. How many people heard of Agenda 21?
What?
Agenda 21.
Oh,
Agenda 21 is eminent domain. U.S. government can confiscate farms, forests, natural resource, anything you want. Ozarks, Oklahoma, Coyamishi Mountains, and settle 100 million Muslims. Do you understand how you're going to get 100 million Muslims? And you know what? It's going to be good for you. Because all the Saudi money is going to come back for the $17 billion debt. They're going to build houses for that. I was once in a church, nice church. Everyone's nice. And one of the guys comes up to me after I speak, says, if I keep my job and gas goes down to $2.50 a gallon, I vote Obama. A lot of people, they just want to keep their jobs, they want to feed their families. Okay? So if you have 100 million Muslims coming in, you're going to have an unprecedented prosperity in this country. That's why I'm saying dollar will not collapse, American economy will not just yet, will not collapse. Immigration is good. Okay, now we're going to do a little economics 101. Then we're going to come back to Saudi Arabia and start wrapping up. 8:15. How much time should I continue past that? Okay. Now, I want to do economics 101 a la Avi Lipkin. It's my own theory. Again, I don't know if people are talking about it, but I have not heard other people. I'm just putting this together. Europe is 350 million people. America is 310. Okay, so Europe outnumbers America by 40 million people. Economically speaking, Europe has a greater potential than the US. So the US has to increase its population. How do you increase the American population? You merge with Mexico and Canada, and it's called NAFTA. How many people heard of NAFTA? If Canada, Mexico, and US merge, it's 500 million people. Okay, so then you're more than the Europeans. Now the Europeans don't want to be less than you. So they're going to take in a country called Turkey. How many people heard of Turkey? Turkey, 70 million Turks, Muslims. So you're going to have 300 million Europeans, 50 million Muslims who are already Europeans, plus 70 million Turks and they go up to 420 million, but they're still short. Now, how many people heard of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, all these stands that broke away from the Soviet Union? That's 200 million Turkish Muslims. They are all entitled to Turkish passports. When Turkey is admitted to the European Union, it's not 70 million, it's 270 million Turks. Because all these Russian Turks can go to Europe now. So Europe becomes 620 million people, of which 320 million are Muslims. Europe becomes Muslim overnight. Europe becomes a Muslim continent. But again, we're not talking about religion, we're talking about economics. 620 million. America, Canada, and Mexico, 500 million. Why is President Obama bringing in these little kids from Central America? And the reason is, if you have the kids, you have the parents. If you have the parents, the 6 republics of Central America will then join NAFTA. So you'll go from 500 million to 520 million. You're still short 100 million. America needs 100 million more immigrants. Where are you going to get them from? From Egypt, from Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. In other words, I'm not saying that they realize what they're doing. But by pulling out all the stops in the Islamic countries, these countries are going to depopulate. These Muslims are going to come here. You'll have 620 million people here, 620 million people in Europe. Economically, 2 big powerhouses. Religiously, 2 blocks which are going to become Muslim or pro-Muslim. Unless the Christians have a revival. Do you understand why I'm preaching revival? Because if you don't wake up and stop it, and I think the Republican victory in the elections is a sign, though many Republicans go along with the Islamic petrodollars. Okay. What I want to do now is I want to share my second most important testimony. First most important testimony was Dallas Council on World Affairs. Second one is about Edmonton, Canada. How many people have been to Edmonton, Canada? Okay, I love Edmonton, Canada. I always feel very at home there. It's kind of like something between Colorado Springs and Denver, you know. One side is the prairie and one side is the mountains.
They've got that large mall
The biggest mall in the world, I understand. They have a swimming pool there with ocean waves in the middle of the mall.
there. I think the other one's in Minnesota.
I could be, I don't know. I was at the one in Edmonton. So anyway, so I received the testimony. It's getting late. I don't want to waste too much time. I'll say it very short. I met in a Jewish Orthodox synagogue. I met a Christian Messianic woman who was a social worker for the government of Canada, and she works with the RCMP, in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And they said that the Muslims have a plan to catalog all the Jews outside of Israel and to kill them. And the Jews are married to Christians in America and Canada 71%. In other words, every 100 Jews in America marry 71 Christians. This is a tremendous intermarriage. And so they're going to have to kill the Christian spouses too. They're going to have to kill the children of the Jewish and Christian spouses. And this will happen when orders are given from the Middle East for jihad. And only 10% of the Muslims are terrorists. So if you got 30 million Muslims in America, you're talking about 3 million Muslim terrorists with guns. You know, gun control doesn't apply to Muslim terrorists. And so what I predict is happening, more and more Muslims are going to come into this country, and their bottom line is kill the Jew on Saturday, kill the Christian on Sunday. Now, I didn't really talk about it tonight. How many people know I'm working to form a Judeo-Christian political party to run for the Israeli government elections? Now this, God willing, I'm retiring officially as far as Social Security is concerned in January. Tomorrow, actually, I'm registering in Texas, you know, in Denton with the Social Security there. I'm not retiring as far as work, but I'm not going to come back here except for fundraising and for government-type meetings. In March, the party, God willing, will be registered. I will be financially, you know, basing myself on Social Security until they go bankrupt.
Which will be first of the year.
Well, yeah. Thank you very much. You know what? If that does happen, it means God wants me to write more books and keep preaching.
I guess He wants to be with you.
Yeah. And don't forget, 19 terrorists shut down the U.S. on 9/11.
Right?
19. So we're talking about 3 million terrorists. I believe this is going to set into motion a massive tsunami of Jews and Christians moving to the land of Israel. If you're a Christian married to a Jew, or if you're a Christian with a Jewish grandparent, you can move to Israel by law. The party that I'm creating will be the party of the immigrants. I predict 10 million immigrants will move to Israel. Israel's population today is 6.5 million Jews and Christians. It'll be 16.5 million very soon. And the party that I'm working to create will be the biggest party in the Knesset. My party will be the party that will receive these immigrants and absorb them in Israel. I believe our borders are going to grow. Deuteronomy 11 says, wherever your feet will tread, which is Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, northwest Saudi Arabia, and Egyptian peninsula of Sinai. Our borders are going to grow, our population is going to grow, and Messiah is going to show. I think we are in a time where the Messiah is going to show. Now, again, what I think is going to happen is that ISIS and this entire war in Saudi Arabia is going to bring about the destruction of Mecca and Medina. It's going to bring about collapse of the Islamic order. And the one world government is going to ban Islam. Because the one world government can play along with all the insanity of Islam as long as the oil is flowing. But when the oil stops flowing, then the one world government says, no way, Jose. And that's the end of Islam. And then they're going to say to the Jews, build your temple now. Because there's nobody to oppose you. And you know, I'm not in favor of animal sacrifices, but you know, people who read the New Testament say Jesus cannot return until the Antichrist shows up at the temple.
That's right.
So if you're a Christian, you got to support the rebuilding of the temple.
That's right.
Maybe not for animal sacrifices, but the point is, I believe that the Antichrist is not a Muslim. The Antichrist is going to come from the European, American, Vatican system. And if Islam is terminated soon, and if the Jews go home soon with their Christian spouses, I think this all points to things that are imminent, things that are about to happen. So I'm just saying, we are the generation that is witnessing more fulfillment of Bible prophecy than any other generation in 2,000 years. Everything is coming down right now as we talk. So this is my last trip to the States. You know, as a preacher, I go home in the 4 weeks, get the party registered, and start campaigning for the Knesset and getting ready for the Jews and Christians to come home. So let me tell you a joke. I haven't seen any black people here, but I have to tell you a little joke, which if there were blacks here, they'd laugh their heads off at this joke. A Jewish guy has 3 sons. And you know, Jewish people don't like it when the kids marry out of the faith. It's kind of like, remember my big fat Greek wedding?
Yeah.
Remember the girl says to her father, Dad, so can I marry the American guy? And so the father says, no, now go eat something. And that's very Jewish too. So anyway, so this Jewish guy has 3 sons. First son comes home, Daddy, I met the girl of my dreams. What's her name? O'Malley. The father says, that's not a Jewish name. I don't care, I love her, she's the woman of my dreams. Okay, son, go in peace, I have my blessing. Please, God, I have 2 sons left, let them marry girls with Jewish names. Second son comes home, Daddy, I met the girl of my dreams. What's her name? Smith. He says, Smith, that's not a Jewish name. I don't care, I love her. Okay, I heard that from your brother, go in peace. One son left, God, let him marry a girl with a Jewish name. Third son comes home, I met the girl of my dreams. What's her name? Goldberg. Goldberg, praise God, a Jewish name. What's her first name? Whoopi. So I think what we're going to be seeing is we're going to see the 100 Jews moving to Israel with 71 Christian spouses.
Wow.
And the reason that's going to happen is because the Messiah is going to show in Jerusalem not only for the Jews. The Messiah is going to show for everyone who's going to be there. I learned a very interesting verse recently from Hosea 11, verse 10. Hosea 11, verse 10 says, my children, Ephraim, will come home trembling from the west as the Lord roars like a lion. God is using the Muslims as a giant spatula to chase the Jews home. And the Jews that do not go home will be killed by the Muslims. Do you understand why I'm forming a Judeo-Christian party in Jerusalem? because we have to give representation to all the Christians who come to Israel or married to us, serve in the army, pay taxes, and vote in Israel. Anyway, so this is what I was trying to share. I was trying to share things from 3,000, 4,000 years ago. Phylacteries, spiritual, our slavery in Egypt. And somehow this is all coming back to Egypt and Arabia. The Exodus was from Egypt to Arabia. We're coming back to Egypt and Arabia again.
What about just plain Christians that don't
What?
have any Jew blood?
Okay, let me say it like this. I believe in the Messianic kingdom, Messianic era, which will be in Jerusalem. But I also believe Islam will be banned. Islam will be terminated. 1.5 billion Muslims will become Christians. And it'll be a Christian era on the face of the earth. I think the Hindus and Buddhists also are going to drop their systems. I don't know, I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We all do.
Will be able to immigrate to Israel?
Immigrate, no, but we will receive many Christians. I think the Christian population, which is now 8%, will grow to 20, 30%, but there's only one Israel. It's going to be a Jewish state. Obviously, you know, it's like if a ship sinks and you have room for 20 people in a lifeboat, you can't put more than 20 people in a lifeboat.
Right.
So, but I think Israel will be a light unto all the nations. I'm working to form also a Christian United Nations in Israel. In other words, the United Nations in New York City represents the pagans. Christians are now a small minority, only 1/3 of the human race. I want to form a Bible bloc United Nations in Jerusalem, representing all the Christian and conservative political parties in the world. I have a number of plans. It's in my blue book about the Bible bloc party. And I ask for your prayers, you know, your support in any way you can. And pray for me for getting home safe to Israel. And I pray for you for America, that you'll have your revival. I believe America comes out on top. You won't have to go to live in Israel, but you'll be in Israel. You'll be coming often. And God bless all of you. And take the prospectuses also for my son's tour to Israel in March with Gary Stearman. And it'll be a scholars tour to Israel. Come often to Israel, yes.
Avi, what do you think about these Muslim testimonies that Yeshua is appearing to them?
I believe, of course. I've heard many of them. I'm telling you, the day's going to come that the Muslims will realize that Islam is a failed system, and they're going to be looking for the truth.